Hey, man. How are you, Eddie?
Hey, Mitchell. How are you? Ladies and gentlemen, Mitchell Stuart.
Hey. Welcome to Ham Radio.
Thank you. Mitchell Stuart, the director of course, Worst to First. Let me get the exact title. I want to make sure. The Worst to First, the true story of Z100 New York.
Excellent documentary.
Yes, a couple of us have already watched it. I've watched it 3 times, and by the way, I paid for it. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for being on. Of course, even though I got it for free, I paid for it. So you can put some money towards Elvis Duran and everybody else so they can get their money.
There you go.
There you go. So
they will appreciate it.
They will. They just want to be financially safe.
Just don't say it's from Eddie.
No, don't say it's from me. Elvis still might hate me for the whole John Bell thing. We'll get back to that later. So the movie itself is kind of weird. We'll get into that in 1 second because it's about how the radio station Z100 WHTZ here in New York City was built and how it became to be. But the funny part is Mitchell Stuart, who is the writer, director, producer, I think he even did catering for the film. Literally, you didn't know that Scott Shannon, who was the guy who created Z100, built Z100. Like, you didn't even know that, and then you became the guy to tell the story. How did that happen?
Right. Well, the era that Z100 came out in the 80s, I was very happily playing in avant-garde punk bands. So Z100 wasn't any place that I ever thought my music would be in. And so I wasn't listening to it. As you know, somewhere around 2003, a great friend of mine, Don McLeod, asked me to come and work with Z100 at a Z100 Jingle Ball.
Yes.
And it was a little bit after 9/11, and my company had just started, so it wasn't exactly the best time to be an entrepreneur. The collateral fallout of 9/11 for small businesses was horrific. We were just managing to get by. And so Don offered me an opportunity to go and work with Z100, and they had a budget of X, which was $1,000 less than it was going to cost me. And I said, well, I get to go backstage at the Garden. What the hell, right?
Nice.
So I went, and what I discovered is, this, with all my, punk rock, like attitude, I walked into a room expecting a bunch of, top 40, I could give a you-know-what about, and these people, some of which Eddie.
Yes.
Just loved music. And if you love music and you're a music person, I mean, we could all, sniff them out, like real music people, they care. And that's what I was being introduced to when I met, Tom Pullman, Paul Marolda, Sharon Dasser, Darren Pfeffer. Any of these people were real music people. So I said, okay, you know what? Cool. Let me see what I can do. And for anyone who has not walked into Madison Square Garden in front of 19,000 screaming teenagers, you realize very quickly that those kids, their reality of their pop stars, is every bit the same as ours. It meant as much to them as what the Clash meant to me, for example. And so, when they asked me to work with them a little bit more and try to do commercials, it was like, okay, here's what I think. And we all agreed on a path to find. So I started working with Z100. Now, Z100 to me was, I walked in the building, they existed. I wasn't paying attention to what happened before then. They were just a station that existed in New York that I didn't particularly pay attention to.
No.
So go all these, and go all these years later, and I get a call from Scott Shannon's agent, John McConnell, and he goes, we're trying to find a director to do this film, and your name keeps coming up. I said, okay. He said, would you be interested? And I said, in what? He goes, I don't really want to do a Scott Shannon biopic. I don't really have an interest in that. I'm probably not that guy. They said, no. We want to do a story on the origins of Z100. And there's a moment in the doc where I'm in Nashville, and I'm working with Gavin DeGraw and on a TV show, and he was kind enough to agree to do an interview because he kind of bridged the era from Scott to Tom Pullman. And we were interviewing him, and I said, well, Scott Shannon's started Z100 and you saw the reaction on his face when you saw the movie or the trailer.
Yeah.
It was every bit as in shock as I was. I was like, get the what? Scott Shannon. So it was, for a documentarian, it was good because I didn't go in with any preconceived idea. It was all something new for me. So I let, as all documentarians do, you don't go in with a preconceived idea. You let the story unfold as you continue the research, and that's what we found. And in fact, the first cut was nearly 3 hours, and it included the a bunch of the Elvis years and Tom Pullman years, and it was Elvis Duran himself. And as you know, he is about the nicest guy in the world. And he said, "This really shouldn't be that movie." He said, and he asked me what I thought the movie should be. And I said, it's the 74 days, worst to first. And Elvis said, that's what you're calling the movie, and that's what we have to do. So that's where we landed on the 74 days, because it represented a story that I think you guys would agree will never happen again. With the way media is.
And
this won't happen again, right?
And that's the one thing that makes you, even if you're not a big Radiohead and you have no clue what we're talking about, you have to be impressed with the fact that they plucked Scott Shannon from Tampa, Florida. They bring him up there. Now, he's this big old redneck, chubby dude, look like Elvis, got a beard, wearing Hawaiian shirts and shorts, sandals sometimes. He's out there just trying to be, he has all these great ideas. He invented the zoo format when it was when it was the Q Zoo and all that. Does all that stuff, and everybody under the sun told everybody else this is not going to work. This is crazy. This is stupid. This is not going to be, which is what happens, like I was trying to explain to Joe off air. This is the radio business. I was like, let me speak for the radio business. A lot of the people in the radio business are stupid. Okay? And they're know-it-alls. And they all want to tell everybody what's going to work and what's not going to work. And they're not going to even try. And that is why I believe Z100, and that's why in this movie, Worst to First, the true story of Z100 New York, is the true underdog story. And everyone bets on the underdog, and he proved it, because even when he got there and they built the place around Scott Shannon in Newark, New Jersey, well, actually in Secaucus, New Jersey, where they built it around him, and they were still on their thing, and they were going and everything. Scott goes live on the air when they're not doing well, when the ratings are in the quote-unquote shitter, okay? They're in the dumpster. He goes on and explains that let me quote Scott, we suck, okay? We're not we're not at the top spot. We're the lowest damn channel in here, in the station and radio, and we need your help. And like a rallying cry, he brought them from worst to first. He literally took every single person who was ever listening to Z100 and rallied them together. And like soldiers, they stood together and they told two people and they told two people. And they did when he was like, take a sheet hanging out your window, write Z100 on it. Hanging out in Staten Island, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, wherever you are, let people know that we exist. He built the station around the fans, which I think is what's missing from radio today. That's the thing that gets you.
Well, you hit a couple of points, and thank you for picking up on what we were, quote-unquote, laying down.
Yeah.
What ended up appealing to me the most was, and the way I grew up, we love showing our daughter our bank account from when we got married that had $320 in it, and, I drove a cab and I made enough to take my wife out and my girlfriend out for a date. So if I could make $50, I was fine in the cab. And meanwhile, my friend, I've gone through the whole thing. I've had every shitty job that you could ever imagine, as anyone who pursues the arts does, and anyone who doesn't know anyone.
Yeah.
And it struck me is like, especially now, in the hopefully tail end of a global pandemic, or maybe not, but it's still there, when not everyone is getting to do, they think can't do what they really want and dream to do. This is the kind of film that you want to have, because Scott did it. People say radio is this, radio is that, music is this, music is that. You know what? Music has always been that way. You needed to get over and put it out. So to me, if I was a kid starting, I don't need permission to put my music out.
Yeah.
Scott didn't need permission to be Scott. He just was Scott. And as we all know as New Yorkers, New York is a very funny place. Everyone thinks it's intimidating, it's this, it's that. Okay, it moves faster than any place on the planet, but here's what New York is. It's got a big welcome mat out. You come, and if you bring it, we'll pay attention. Just don't give up, because you're going to be punched in the face 15 times, and it may be 20 times.
That's getting on the subway.
That's what, right? You got to just keep going, and that's what this movie is. I mean, everyone told, they literally, the number one critic on radio at the time, George Maxine, said, I hope you have a round-trip ticket because this hillbilly's going to go back. We're going to kick him out of town.
Yeah,
well, it didn't quite work that way, did it?
Yeah, they wanted it. That's what I'm saying. The know-it-alls and the stupid people that were, this is never going to work. Radio is one way. It can't be any other way, so fuck off there. And they got their pitchforks and their torches, and they're all just screaming and moaning. And much like, to use Mitchell Stuart, by the way, the director, writer, and producer as an example, that punk rock mentality of going out and actually putting a middle finger up to the establishment and say, watch us.
Yeah.
Watch me do this. This is what's going to happen. We thrive on adversity. Tell me we can't do it. And guess what? Scott Shannon showed this fat hillbilly from Florida is going to accomplish it. And that's exactly what he did. And it's funny because he's going up against my mentor in this business at that time.
Right.
He's going up against Jim Kerr, who I love and who's a fan of this show and a friend of this personality sitting here right across from you right now, this gentleman. And I watch it, and the best part is that I know that you were trying to get this kind of like these war wound storylines for Scott Shannon came in and he was he just was an asshole and he just totally screwed us over and blah blah. That's not Jim. That's the thing. Jim Kerr it's in perfect Jim Kerr fashion. During this interview, he's not angry and he admits defeat. And not only is Jim Kerr, because that's what he does, he's humble, but he's still to this day in awe of what Scott Shannon did during that time period. Because remember, Jim is on, at that point, Power 95.5, which changed formats. For anyone, by the way, who doesn't understand radioese, that means the radio station started playing different music.
It changed from rock to...
Yeah, to top 40 stuff. Yeah. And what happened was they weren't doing... And Jim, I think, will probably admit this to this day. They weren't doing what Scott Shannon wanted to do. Scott Shannon, that's why he was like, it's the flamethrower and all that stuff. He didn't want. He was telling you, we're gonna put like Mitchell just said. It's like punching you in the face 25 times. That's what Z100 was doing. Z100 was like just going, take the song, right in the face. When Jim is like, hey, that was Pat Benatar with blah, 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 blah. Right. And Jim being the heartthrob or Jim being the good-looking, tight jean-wearing radio jock.
Eddie, he was a 20-year-old, whatever, heartthrob.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was that guy. And everyone liked him. He's likable. And you're exactly right. I'm sorry for interrupting, but just to state it, you want it, documentary. You want to show both sides of the story. Okay, I couldn't go to Imus. He's not here, right?
Yeah,
I couldn't go to the Gamblings. They're not here. So who's around to speak with? Jim Kerr. And he comes up and comes into our studio, and I'm, going to do my best, 185 Film Festival documentarian. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get the dirt, right? I'm going to get the dirt from Jim Kerr.
I'll show him.
And he is, as what you would understand best of all in wrestling speak.
Yes,
he put over Scott Shannon.
Oh,
he put it over because he was in awe, and he's one of the people that steals the movie because he's just Jim effing Kerr.
Yeah,
and he's so real and so authentic. How do you not want to go hug this guy because he's just a really kind of menschy guy, right?
I was literally about to say, I want to hug him. He's wearing an avocado button-down T-shirt, dress shirt in the thing, and I'm like, I just want to hug him. After you hear what happened during that time period, Jim? Where did they hurt you, Jim? Come on, Jim, tell us.
And his hair was longer. He looked like he could have been an REM. Also, I thought that was a great look for him.
Yeah. But it's incredibly funny because when you watch it, like the biggest thing that I took away from it, because this actually affected me, bitch, and I got to tell you this story for a minute. One time, back, I want to say like this was shit. I want to say not in the. It was like right about before the 2000s. Okay, so I'm not in radio yet. I'm still dumb. You know, I'm more dumb than I am now, which is very hard to understand. However, because of the groundwork that Scott Shannon left, you know, when he built that, and because of everybody else doing the normal from the top of the Empire State Building,
Right.
I honestly thought that the studios for Z100 were in the Empire State Building.
Well, as did a lot of people.
Yes, but like a fucking mook that I am, I plus Filipino Heat and his brother Edison, during a blizzard in New York, we're now walking around. We're trucking through the frozen tundra to literally the Empire State Building and get into the lobby, and like a bunch of morons, we sit there and go, "Excuse us, where is Z100?" And they're like, "New Jersey."
Not here.
Right.
You idiots.
Well, how about this? How many people back in those days would go to, Jersey, go to the newer offices, and just presume the radio station wasn't there, just the offices, because they're at the top of the Empire State Building. I mean, it's just what a trick of the light. What a magician Scott was to do that, and it imprinted on everyone who's ever heard it for every generation, and you just presume he's there. And when Jim said everyone's up there, I didn't know that either, because though I've worked, to brand a lot of stations, I'm not a radio geek. I'm a music geek, and I'm a storyteller geek, so I don't go where I don't need to go. It's like, wait, everyone's up there? Really?
Yeah.
Goddamn Scott Shannon, you pulled it off. You pulled the wool over all of our eyes.
But and that's one of the greatest things that Jim does express in the documentary, Worst to First, the true story of Z100 New York, is one of the best parts is that he sits there and not only just the line of everybody, because it is, everyone rents out this antenna area that's on top of the Empire State Building, so all your favorite radio stations broadcast from the top of the Empire State Building. But the best part one is when he's explaining, goes, what Scott Shannon did was not, like, it's how he did it. He didn't lie.
Right.
They were broadcasting from the top of the Empire State Building. But everybody was broadcasting from the top of the Empire State Building. So
Eddie,
good.
Eddie, you just made me think of something, because, obviously I've had this conversation in the last 2 weeks about 35 times.
Yes.
But with you saying it, something just popped in my head. I'm throwing it to you. So let me reverse it, and I'll be the interviewer.
Okay, sir.
Don't you think, let me rephrase, would it have been possible for Scott to be so impressed to be broadcasting from the top of the Empire State Building if he actually was from New York and it's in his backyard?
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps he was blown away by the fact that he was broadcasting from the top of the Empire State Building and wanted to tell everyone back home in Tampa that he was doing it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think one of two things. I believe that if he was... The best part in the documentary, too, is another... I keep saying the best part because this whole documentary, to me, is outstanding, by the way, to watch.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
It literally, I sat there, the time just goes by. You don't even know how long... It's a very quick watch because you're like, whoa, this is great. I'm learning so much. But one of the best parts is when they're flying in. Scott Shannon's wife is... they're flying in, and he sees... from the window, he sees what he goes, you see that, honey? That's New York City. And I'm going to broadcast. I'm going to get a mic and talk to all those people. He was flying into Newark.
Yes.
So,
and here's an inside baseball moment for you.
Yeah.
When that came up, right, in the story, and she said, you're not really going to put that in, right? I said, oh, yeah, we're going to
totally put it in.
That's not coming out. Because that's the essence of who Scott was. He was, from you can't judge a book by the cover, right?
Yeah.
So something in common for both of us, right?
Absolutely.
So, and here he is, call him a hillbilly, and maybe he was. doesn't mean he's not a really smart hillbilly.
Oh, we totally.
You know, and think about so there's how that worked. And, I really appreciate you caring for the film. It's not just, hopefully it's not just for, radio geeks. It's for, like, anyone who's ever tried to do something.
Well, no, if you're a music fan, you're going to love it because it has a lot of, like, Debbie Gibson's in it. You get to hear the story of how Madonna pretty much came there and
that's what I wanted to talk about.
And hoard herself out every Tuesday. She just came there going, "Hey, you going to play my song?"
That's how it used to be. They would sit outside all the studios and like, hey, can you play this?
But that's the point. Like, you don't need to be a Radiohead to enjoy that because Ricky is new to radio technically, right? Because Ricky did, it was Sirius XM and everything, but he's new to radio and he thoroughly enjoyed it because of the music aspect.
Thank you, Ricky.
Yeah, Taylor Dane. I really appreciated Taylor Dane because I was such a big fan of hers.
Plus, you just thought she was hot in that jumpsuit.
She damn sure was.
Wow.
Today, she looked great.
Okay. Taylor Dane is just... Think about Taylor Dane, right?
We're thinking about her.
Jett. Well, you think about her, right? But think about who she is. No one cares. She's out in the clubs in the 80s, running around, bashing her head, trying to get noticed. Won't take no for an answer. Joan Jett was told no more than anybody. I mean, what people don't know the history of Joan Jett is she couldn't get arrested after the
Runaways.
After the first band, Runaways, right? So she and Kenny Laguna literally are selling vinyl from the back of Kenny's car after each gig. Right. She's not taking no for an answer. Debbie Gibson is not taking no for an answer. Nile Rodgers, good luck. He crossed over, and he makes the point that crossover, and again, the punk in me is like, what, crossover? I'm selling out. No. Crossover means you're getting to your music to people that wouldn't have heard it before. And I'm like, damn, this guy's got it. But what's the common denominator? John Bon Jovi is sweeping up in his uncle / cousin's recording studio.
Right.
Can't get a deal, gets on a radio deal at WAPP, they pick it up, then Scott picks it up, and it becomes this. The common denominator for everyone there is they didn't give up. And the state of the music industry now, which everyone's always pissing on it, right? Okay, you don't need permission. Go record, put it out, do your thing. You'll play a club when you can do it. If you can't play a club, put your iPhone up or whatever kind of phone you got and do a concert. Get it out. That's what I hope people pick up on this. It's like, it's never been worse. It's never been better. It's always the same, right? It's always, you gotta bash your head against the wall until the wall moves.
Well, that's
just the gig.
Might be a little crazy after, but hey, you're in.
But that's the thing, Mitchell. Is the same. It's the same thing that we can say about you. If you literally just stuck with doing just the punk music, if you stuck with just being in the cab, if you only making $320 something, if you stuck with only doing that, then you wouldn't have done 7 Jingle Balls. You wouldn't have done, but you would never have walked backstage at Madison Square Garden. You never would have partnered up with Paul Heyman and had that, Looking for Larry, that company. All these things wouldn't happen because, by the way, like you just pointed out before, if people judge a book by its cover, guys like us aren't supposed to make it at all. Guys like us, because the establishment wants to tell you, no, we're only going to do it one way. We're going to have this cookie-cutter format. This is what we're going to do, and that's what's going to happen. And this is bum, bum, bum. And even guys like Scott Shannon. Scott Shannon's not supposed to make it. He's supposed, if by everybody's estimations, he's supposed to be a giant failure. That's what it's supposed to happen. Right. He's supposed to just be, bend over and kiss your ass goodbye and go back to Tampa because that's what's going to happen. That's what is looked at about people. But when the underdog pushes past, when the underdog that's the thing that gets you about this movie. When the underdog, be it Madonna, who showed up every Tuesday, be it Debbie Gibson, which, by the way, she looks amazing. Debbie Gibson.
She looks amazing.
She looks amazing,
too. Nicest human,
Taylor Dane.
The nicest
Taylor Dane look amazing.
She looks amazing, too. All these people that go out, and in that movie, they go out and they show you that they busted their ass. They busted their ass. They never gave up. And then when the underdog becomes the top dog, that is truly an accomplishment that needs to be documented. And that is what this movie does. It documents the fact that all these people, not just Scott Shannon, everybody and how Z100 became, they were groundbreakers. They were game changers. Those are the people that we gravitate towards.
I like the fact that Tony Orlando stepped in.
Yeah. Tony Orlando was a big one,
Tony Orlando is like, but if you look at, and, from my other work, I had gotten to work with John Bon Jovi, usually with a guitar strap over his shoulder, right? Mm-hmm. And when he came in to do the interview, it's because I'm used to that John Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And I did the interview, and we're editing the interview, and my wife, who's the reason I could do anything, because we have Enid Stuart, shout out. We flipped the coin when we graduated. We flipped the coin when we graduated from college. She lost. So she had to go to law school, but of course, so I didn't. But that's a story into itself. But when John, and it's my trick. I don't want to ask the obvious question. I'm going to do insane research, even if it's a 5-minute interview, because sometimes that turns into, like my experience with Motley Crue that won an Emmy. It's like they give you 5 minutes, make them stay for 7, right?
Yeah.
But when John, make it interesting for them. But John came in that day, and you see there was such a connection, because we were talking about not the music business, but his love of music. And at his point, he was introduced to music from the radio. Yeah, so I wanted it to be about radio as the conduit, because radio, what's a radio now? I'm talking to you now on my phone. Radio radio has evolved. Maybe everyone doesn't like the homogenization of big stations, and believe me, I understand that completely, because going back to the punk in me, I'd throw a rocket at the station, right? However, there's so many stations. I like African music. I can find my African station. So just go. You're on Sirius now.
Yeah.
You could go anywhere on there, right? So it's like, if you don't see the obstacle, it's the best of times, because you'll find someone to listen to you.
Yeah,
put it on YouTube, right? You'll find your place, and if whatever that niche is, let's say you have 1,000 fans. Well, there's a value to those 1,000 fans if you know what you're doing, and there's a value to someone who will endorse you to get to those 1,000 diehard fans. So it's all, and that's what Joan Jett's selling records from the back, with Kenny Laguna from the back of the car. 10 people bought, maybe one person bought, then 10, maybe 100. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, we want you, but Kenny could say to them, well, you don't own me. You could call me partner, and that's what happens when, to allude to what you're saying before, if you can get in the room and they welcome you in the room, right? When they welcome you into the room, then that's as sweet as it gets.
Absolutely.
Because then, not only, and you and I touched upon that before, you're not there because you've been through so much shit. You're not just there about you. You're there to elevate everybody. And if you elevate everybody, then you've won.
Right.
You've won.
That's why one of the...
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, because that's what... Yeah, Billy.
When I used to wrestle, that's what it was. Like, everybody... You're there to work with the other person and put
them over.
Each person over to the best of the ability. It's not all about, like, oh, me, I'm the superstar. Some guys needed to learn that lesson, but, you know how that
they learned it the hard way, yes. And some of them have moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't understand that about... Wrestling is such an art, and it's such a dance, and it's the world's best stunt people / performers working without any safety net and live. Mm-hmm. And they'll never get the respect for that they should. But you can elevate that storytelling, and that's why someone like. It's just my opinion. I don't know him. That's why John Cena could go on Peacemaker and trust James Gunn, to trust him so much and have that trust in him as a creator that he'll just go for it the way that Batista did.
How good is
look
Peacemaker?
How amazing he is.
By the way.
Oh, don't even get me started.
How effing great is Peacemaker? Oh, it's fucking amazing.
I mean, it's the only opening on any television series that you don't skip. I mean, come on. It's right? I mean,
watch it every time.
And it's brilliant. Yeah. It is this generation's, if you go back to the golden age of television, to me, it's this generation's Get Smart. It is just so smart.
It's irreverent. It's well written.
It's Mel Brooks. You know, exactly. It's great.
Oh, it's outstanding. Now, I know we got to finish up with you, but here's one thing I want to ask you because I do relish your opinion.
Because I am on vacation, and remember, my wife is a lawyer.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Enid, if you're listening to this, I'll be off soon, and I'll give you Eddie's email if you need to speak to him. Go ahead, sorry. She is a badass samurai. I'll tell you that now.
Oh, absolutely.
She's a gunslinger.
I'm more afraid of your wife than I am even Paul Heyman. So let's just work.
Well, I would, and Paul would tell you your judgment is clearly perfect.
You're accurate, sir. One last thing I do want to ask, because radio back then, much like it is today, a lot of it it's boring. Before Scott Shannon does its stuff, they do go into the whole thing. It's uninspired. And there's actually a quote in the movie, which I put up on my Facebook. I know you saw it because you liked it.
Yep.
P.T. Barnum said it best. Quote, no one ever made a difference by being like everyone else.
Right.
So what's your view of radio nowadays? If you can actually give your opinion about radio that's out there nowadays, what is your viewpoint on that? And is there another chance for another Scott Shannon type takeover? The Ham Radio Show?
So, here's the point. And it's what we were talking about. Everyone that's going to say no, F you.
Yes!
Basically.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Everyone's going to, because here's the deal. You have Sirius. You have this. You have multiple options for as long as you expand your definition, except the fact that radio has evolved. You may not like that evolution because you're stuck in the past. It's like people at record companies, in the 90s where, kept selling those CDs as long as they could. They missed the point. Digital happened. Don't hang on to it, man.
Mitchell?
Raise technology. So we can't. Sorry?
No, we thought we lost you for a second. It kind of went bloop. I think your samurai wife cut the line.
She just has to give me a look. I do Muay Thai. She does Vulcan mind. Vulcan mind tricks. It's far more powerful. But long story short, radio has evolved. You may not like it, not you personally, but people may not like it because it doesn't remind them of what was. It's not supposed to, right? It would be dead if it was still doing terrestrial radio. So just go out there, see what the stations are. Go figure it out. Make your own station, do a podcast, play music on it. Guess what that is? What's a podcast? Podcast is radio, right? It's audio. What's radio? It's audio, and now it's audio and video, right?
You are
just
correct.
Like anyone who says you can't do it, well, you know what? This generation's Howard Stern is figuring it out. He's not going to sound, or she won't sound like Howard Stern. They're going to sound like Howard Stern should sound if he was starting, and that person will start a revolution. Do I believe that? 100%.
It's so nice for you. It's so nice for you to say that about us. It's humbling, quite frankly.
That's the reality. Same thing about music. It's like everything happens. How it happens is not like it happened before.
No,
because that's bull, right? But it happens the way it's supposed to happen now, and you just have to continue to manage your expectations because looking back is not something I ever do. It's like, what's the point? Like history repeats itself, but if you do it right, learn the strategies, but adapt them, and then you keep going.
You look back.
That's the gig.
You look back, you see where they went wrong, and you're like, all right, here's where
you learn from it.
We got to look for when a situation changes on us to move past it.
Billy became Confucius.
Yeah, there you go. So I've changed. Sorry, I probably ruined your show because people are probably listening now to the Buddhist Eddie show.
Well, Billy does have a goat-like type thing going on with his beard. So
I try.
I know. The movie is called Worst to First, the true story of Z100 New York. You can get it wherever you can download, rent, buy, whatever. I watched it on Amazon Prime. You figure it out for yourself. Find out where you can watch it, even if you're a Radiohead, if you're a music person, if you just want to see Jim Kerr in an avocado button-down shirt, if you want to see Scott Shannon, old and new and back and forth, you can see it all. It doesn't matter.
There's something in it for everybody.
There's something in it for everyone. Plus, for the fans of Ricky, Taylor Dane in a jumpsuit. What more do you need, folks?
That was the highlight.
That was the highlight.
And Eddie, let me ask everyone who's listening to this, and let me ask you guys.
Yes, sir.
You know, one favor, and I don't ask you to say you like it if you didn't like it, but go on Rotten Tomatoes, because this is the voice of the people to me, and I want to hear people's opinions of the film. Rate the movie. Give it a review on Rotten Tomatoes, on Amazon, or IMDb. Do all three. It matters, because I am looking at that to see how I could learn from audience's opinion. I mean, don't give it a 10. Right now we're at 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, which is remarkable. But don't give it 100 if you don't think it deserves 100, but give it 100 if you think it does. Or whatever rating you feel it deserves, give it, and also give comments, because I am definitely looking, because, you know, it's all a learning experience, and there's no bad news. It's just news.
I'm going to give it a 90 for the movie, 10% for Taylor Dane in the jumpsuit, and I'm also going to
She need more than 10%.
Well, I can only give her 10%. She looks like a lot of woman.
Is there a way you could hook us up with Taylor Dane?
No, stop trying to say Taylor Dane.
You just want to do other things.
Yeah.
I understand she's single.
Yeah,
All right,
she's
guys,
single.
thank you so much for the time.
Thank
you
you
for having me, and I'll make it a point to hook up when we have the next thing coming out that we should talk about. It with pleasure.
Thank you, Mitchell.